Israel was created as the promised land to provide a home for all Jews of the world. But tens of thousands have fled the country over the past few years, and more are lining up to leave.
Some 50,000 Israelis have applied for European citizenship. 250,000 already have a second passport. It's unlikely that any other country in the world has such a large percentage of new immigrants preparing to leave.
It's really an irony of history, because Israel was established to become a shelter for the Jewish people. Now Europe becomes the shelter of the Jews living in Israel.
In the last 5 years, Israel has been in 2 wars, and many fear another is not far off. And the government's policy of settlement expansion has only isolated the country internationally. So it's no surprise, says leading Israeli journalist Gideon Levy, that people are tired of living in a war zone.
You know, there's a lot of Israelis who leave Israel. It's difficult to live in Israel. I think that the macro component is something that I notice has been going on in Israel, which is basically the erosion of the Zionist mission.
Shira Rot is one of an estimated 13,000 Israelis who've moved here.
I left Israel with debt. Not just the stress of politics and where's this country going to and what's happening and this fear and hatred in the streets and this fucked up conflict that just gets worse and worse and worse. When I was there, I was just feeling suffocated, just drowning kind of feeling.
Russian immigrants in Jerusalem market collect their food from the day's leftovers. For many new Soviet arrivals, the promised land has been a bitter disappointment. With over 200,000 Soviets already in Israel, their presence is stretching the country's resources to the limit. But the new immigrants, often relegated to working in dingy backroom jobs, are questioning why they ever came at all. One Soviet olim, as they're known, commits suicide each month. For their first year in Israel, they get a government subsidy. But when that runs out, they're on their own. Basia Gutner is 77. She left the Soviet Union for a better life. She doesn't understand why the government paid for her air ticket to Israel, but now can't give her a roof over her head.
I would say that we grew up in a cult and in a society that runs itself very similar to North Korea.
But more and more young Orthodox Jews no longer want to devote their lives to God. And surprisingly, many of them are drawn to Germany.